All right, folks, welcome back to the channel. One of the very first videos I ever did was reviewing this ISDT FD100 smart discharger. And if you don't know what this is, it's for discharging lipos. I know that seems like a really stupid thing to do. Why don't you just fly and discharge them? Right, that's what everybody says. But, you know, you take a dozen batteries out to the field and you get rained out and, you know, you're not going to fly for the next 7 days. It's best to put your lipos back to storage voltage. I can't afford to just go through lipos because I'm not caring for them. So I always take care of my lipos. It's just who I am. I don't know if it's OCD or what it is, but this was a game changer for me because typically your lipo charger only discharges a very small current. And this thing would take a 4S 1300 milliamp lipo down to the storage voltage in about, I don't know, 14-15 minutes. And it's not like I had to sit there and watch it. I just plug it in, hit the button, go, and then come back and then be discharged. Or if I had a ton of fully charged lipos, put them on a parallel board and hit go and come back, and they'd all be sitting there at about 3.8 volts per cell. And you know, a lot of questions people had about this is like, oh, hey, it doesn't balance, you know, whatever. Well, your quad doesn't balance when it discharges anyways, and you know, why would this? So, you know, this thing was great. A lot of friends of mine had these. They've gone through a few of them. Luckily, I'm still on my first one. But recently, I noticed ISDT really stepped their game up. So this 100 watt discharger, super useful. Really like it. ISDT came out with a different one. This is the FD 200, and if you guessed it, yep, it's 200 watts. And this thing is a beast of a discharger. I mean, there is some gravity in this guy. It is heavy. It is big. Just to give you an idea how much bigger it is. There's the old one compared to the new one. And this thing has a few neat little tricks up its sleeve. It's Bluetooth. It has Bluetooth in it, and it pairs with the ISDT app to give you a lot of different specs about what you're doing, and allows you to customize a few things, as well as do firmware updates over the air. And it also supports banggood technology. I've never used banggood. I don't know. I really don't think it applies to what we do, but you know, there's other sections of this the RC group that probably does use banggood, but for, you know, the race, drone, multi-rotor, acro stuff, yeah, nobody's really doing banggood, but it does have that ability to support that in the future. So let's go ahead. I want to take this thing apart. I want to see what it looks like on the inside. So I'm going to take both of these apart so we can see what they got going on. All right, well, I mean, I guess I'm not going to take it all the way apart. I probably should have thought about that. These would probably be big extension leads. But you can see it's just this big, chunky, massive piece of aluminum for the heat sink. Just some huge old MOSFETs. You see the numbers on there, just in case for some reason they burn out. You can, I mean, this stuff's all very easily replaceable. Big aluminum extrusions. I don't know if you can see them. Well, I know you can't, but I can see them. There's two big fans inside of there. All inside of this pretty cool aluminum case. The heck with it. Let's take these off. Why not? I want to see what's in here. This feels like a little bit of RTV, some sort of Celastic on here. Get that off of there. All right, let's go ahead and see if we can get these out of here. Some pretty massive battery traces there. Go ahead and with a little bit of flux. So there's going to be 3 wires removed, not just the power and ground, but there's also the banggood sensing wire. It's kind of like the comms wire. Really, I should have a bigger soldering iron for doing this, but old Sparky's out in the garage and it's raining, so I don't really feel like going out there. All right, that ain't gonna work. Be right back. I gotta get a real soldering iron. All right, so here's the real deal here. This is a Drake number 905. It's a 250 watt soldering iron, and this thing will solder the Tin Man. And you can tell it's from a bygone era when safety meant just not hurting yourself. I mean, look at that guy. All right, here we go. This thing does sketch me out a little bit. There we go. This thing actually does have a duty cycle to it. It's 60 seconds at a time. So we're gonna let that chillax for a minute here. And I'm adding solder to it just so I can build a thermal bridge between the iron and the old solder. There we go. Set that guy aside. It smells like the 60s. All right, we got those. And let's get this little guy out of here. Remember, folks, I'm doing this for you. All right, and that's the back go wire right there. There you go. So inside, just a big old aluminum case with a, couple buttons and a XT60 board there in the bottom. It looks like that thing's all kind of like just slid in there. So I guess, oh yeah, it's kind of peened there in the end. So probably could have got it out if I tried a little harder, but oh well. So here is the unit. Two big old fans on there to move some serious heat. And if you needed to replace a fan, these are 40 by 20s, so two of them. And yeah, they're on little plugs here, which is kind of nice. They got a little bit of elastic in there to help with, vibration and whatnot. All the soldering is pretty good, which you'd kind of expect. The FETs, they're a little snotty, but it is what it is. But there are, let's see, 4 big old MOSFETs attached to these aluminum extrusions. Again, if for some reason you blew a MOSFET, those are the numbers. But pretty simple construction, little beeper. There's some sort of breakout cable, something or other right there. Shit, yeah. Down inside of there. I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that. Interesting. All right, well, so more exploration is going to be needed to reassemble this. Shouldn't be too difficult. But yeah. pretty well constructed inside of there. Let's compare it to this guy. By the way, there is a price difference, of course. Ow, it's still hot. There's that half. And I'll take off the back half. Things like cutoff voltage and all that stuff can be altered on the FD200 via the smartphone app. Whereas with the old FD100, you need to have their SC linker, SD linker device, or connect it to a compatible charger like the T8 and the T6 series. So on the older ISDT model, again, another 40 by 20 fan, and you can see it is significantly less robust than the new one. Just a straight through aluminum case, nothing special. And here is the old one. Not a whole lot you can see in there. Can't see the FETs. But you can see it is just, you know, it is a lot smaller, but it is handling half the current. But as you'll see, the 200 does more than twice the work. So that's that. If you guys are curious what the FETs are that are in this because you need to repair one, let me know. I'll tear this back apart and strip it all the way down and get you that info if you need that. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the FD200 back together, and I'll be right back. All right, so I should have looked a little bit harder, but it probably been a lot easier to disassemble it if I would have done it the right way. There's little, there's a couple screws up underneath here. Be very careful not to damage this because I kind of want it to look good when I'm done. I'll just peel that up, and there is how he should have disassembled it. I'm an idiot. But hey, it gave me an excuse to show off that behemoth of a soldering iron. That thing's pretty cool though, I gotta bet. Yeah. Just kind of get up underneath there. Works really good as a spudger tool. And everybody's got them, just old broken props. Work really good as a spudger. That would have come off like so. And then, well, I guess desoldering is kind of the way to do it because this is kind of held in by a little bit of celastic in there. So, yeah, I guess I wasn't completely off my rocker the way I did it. Then, anyways, continue putting this back together. All right, I'll unplug this thing before I burn my house down. And before you put away any soldering iron, make sure you coat the tip with solder. That way it doesn't oxidize. Although, pretty sure this tip is long past. Let's see, a little bit of electric, liquid electric tape. This stuff is garbage, but it does come in handy once in a while. I wouldn't use this if it didn't already have something on there, but the proximity of these wires to that aluminum case is awfully close. Granted, things don't just magically move, but I am going to put a little bit on there because the factory felt it necessary to do it. I guess I should too. See if I make just as much of a mess as they did. Oh, and how? Look at that. All right. Stuff stinks. And it's messy. It gets everywhere. At least whenever I use it, it does. All right. We'll send her home. Just have to kind of watch where all the wires go as you slide the two halves back together. There we go. So that's back in there. And put the grill back on this side. I don't remember which way this came off, or if it even matters. Skirt. I'll just put it back together. Okay. Now all we got to do is kind of feed this ribbon cable back in there and reconnect the board. It's probably just gonna be easier if I take this off. Looks like they had the ribbon cable pinched in there anyways, so that's probably not a bad idea to correct that while we're in there. See, they had this kind of chomped right down in there. So let's go ahead and get this back in place. With the help of this elastic they use, or this RTV, it's kind of in the way. Just going to kind of pull. Kind of pull this forward a little bit. Boy, I wish I had better lighting in there. Might be a little bit better for you. Yeah, so just kind of pull that forward. Go ahead and take our ribbon cable. And straighten that out. Yeah, see, they've got some... this thing's probably not going to work again. There are some smushed wires in there. I'm really hoping those don't do anything. Certainly from when they sent everything home, when they assembled it. Alright, so we got that back in place. Just make sure this other ribbon cable seated in there properly, since we have been kind of moving things around a lot. Now you can see right there is where they kind of munched it in there. We'll just be way more careful than they were. And you know, the case is a little bent from its shipping, so it's gonna kind of go together a little funky. All right, and then we just got to stick our displays back on there. And we'll hook up a LiPo and see how this works out here. So LiPo's hooked up. I'm gonna go into my FD 200 and I'm gonna have to activate this thing, and it'll turn the Bluetooth on. And there we go. So here is the menu of the ISDT Go app, or sorry, the ISD Go app. Inside of here, you can change a lot of different things. Now let's go ahead and stop that discharge. You can come in here, you can change the name. You can make it auto discharge or manual discharge. I prefer auto because I'm not always going to use this app to interact with this thing. It's kind of going to be a standalone thing, and you can also remove it right there if you want. You can calibrate it if you feel like it needs to be calibrated. You can check system information, and it'll give you your software version of the software on the ISDT FD 200. The first time I fired this thing up, it said, hey, there's a firmware update, do you want to do it? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? I really wish I would have waited. That way I could show you here. Nice thing here, there's some information about the discharger, the temperature inside of it, how many discharge cycles it's had. I've done 8 on this thing. How many milliwatts, and what the watt hours are that you've used this thing for. And up here you have this little graphical representation of the amount that's discharging and your set volts per cell. So we'll go ahead and we'll press go, and it'll give you a discharge current maxed out 25 amps. The only way you're going to get maxed out 25 amps, cutoff voltage at 3.8 volts, and max and 6S voltage is what this is set for. And there it goes. You can see it's slowly ramping up the discharge voltage. The wattage is going up. And I can really smell that liquid electric tape. I'm gonna put it on its side here so I can get the air flowing through it. It does exhaust out the back, and it does get pretty warm. And on the front, you can see that there is a little status indicator. So that would be about half discharge. You can alter the charging current by pressing this button on the left here, and that'll change between 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25 amps. This will do up to 8S, even though it only shows 6 on the front. You can keep scrolling through and select 8, but for what I'm doing, no more than 6S is really what I'm going to need. One of the questions I get is, why doesn't this balance charge? Well, it doesn't really need to. If your LiPo's in decent condition, it's going to balance itself as it's discharging. If it's not, that might be a good sign that it's time to retire that pack. I do use this on a balance board. I'll put 10 packs on there and just let it rip. It gets hot, but it'll all do it in one step. So the max this will discharge is approximately 200 watts. The amperage is a function of the input voltage versus the watt. It'll draw up to 25 amps, but that's only going to be maybe running 8S. And right now it's cooling off. What it's doing is it's kind of it's reducing the load and seeing what it balances out at once the load is off of it, you know, sag and all that. So that's it. That's one pack discharge. That was a 6S 1250 from Pyrodrone. Took about 4 minutes-ish, 5 minutes to discharge, pretty quick. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to show you the difference between the old FD100 versus the FD200 discharger. That way you can see whether you might want to buy this or not. Well, there you go. That's a really, really in-depth look at the FD200 smart discharger from ISDT, and you know, with a little bit of competition in there versus the FD100. Just so you can kind of get a comparison. See where you want to put your dollars if this is something you're interested in. Personally, you know, this thing is quite a bit more expensive than this, but it's a lot faster and it is much more robust than this guy. I think if I had to choose between the two, I would probably go with this one. Not saying there's anything wrong with this. Excellent little device. It's a lot smaller, but this thing is definitely better, especially as we start working with higher and higher voltage packs in the things that we do here. If you like these really long form teardown, evaluation, comparison videos, you know, let me know. This was sent to me by Banggood for review. I really appreciate everything they're doing for me. It's keeping me going, and I enjoy every bit of this hobby. If you have any questions about this, please, you know, shoot me a message. I'd love to interact with you. If you have one of these and it took a dump on you, and you want to get a number off a MOSFET, because you know, these things are just jelly beans. They're super easy to fix. Let me know. I'll tear it apart and I'll get that MOSFET number off of there for you. I just didn't feel like doing it today. Probably should have. Oh well, I can do it in the future. No big deal. If you have any problems with this, let me know. I'm kind of curious what the longevity of this is going to be. This one has held up pretty darn well for me. I've got a couple buddies that have been through a few of these. You know, everything has varying amounts of quality. If you like what I'm doing here and you really want to support me, check out the product links in the description below. Clicking on those helps drive more product for me to review. And if you're super interested in supporting me, check out my Patreon. This is it. This is the FD200 by ISDT. ISDT, once again, killing it in the RC space. All right, guys. That's all I got for today. If you like what I'm doing, like, subscribe, click that bell icon. That's it. Thanks for coming by, and I will see you next time. Bye.